of our life's blood so that the Chinese Communist Party can survive and thrive.
Airplanes can land at the facility and quickly deport illegal immigrants to other countries. The center's name alludes to the number of alligators in the area and the former maximum security Alcatraz prison in San Francisco. The facility was built in 8 days over 10 square miles, which equals over 170 football fields. It features more than 200 security cameras, over 5 miles of barbed wire, and 400 security personnel. The Justice Department filed a lawsuit against New York City yesterday to challenge its so-called sanctuary city laws. The complaint filed in the Eastern District of New York says New York's sanctuary policies have obstructed the federal government from enforcing its immigration laws. It accuses the city of allowing dangerous criminals to remain on the streets, committing serious crimes. This lawsuit is one in a long line of complaints the department has filed, including complaints against the state of New York and the city of Rochester as part of an effort to invalidate their sanctuary policies. A spokesperson for Mayor Adams said the mayor supports the essence of the city's sanctuary policies, but he's urged the city council to revisit them so that the city can better cooperate with the federal government in dealing with violent criminals. The spokesperson added that so far the council has refused. Joining us to discuss the Justice Department's case against New York City and its sanctuary policies is Zach Smith, a former federal prosecutor and a legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Good to have you with us today, Zach. In this complaint that we've just spoken about, the department is saying that New York City's policies violate the U.S. Constitution's Supremacy Clause. Could you explain that position for us?
Well, thank you for having me on the show today. And look, I think it should go without saying that the sanctuary policies that New York City, Los Angeles, many of these other left-wing jurisdictions have in place are dangerous and harm their citizens in a variety of ways. And one of the things we saw in the complaint that the Justice Department, led by AG Pam Bondi, filed was they outlined some of those specific harms, specific instances where these sanctuary policies have directly led to further crimes, often violent crimes, being committed and have made it more difficult for federal authorities to do their jobs. The Supremacy Clause of the Constitution says that federal law has to control over any conflicting state or local laws. The Constitution also makes clear that federal authorities have primary responsibility for enforcing our nation's immigration laws. And so I think what Attorney General Bondi with the Justice Department is trying to make clear with these lawsuits is that state and local officials cannot pass laws, they cannot take actions that will ultimately impede the ability of federal officials to do their duty and enforce our immigration laws.
With that in mind, what arguments is the defense likely to argue?
Well, I suspect the city of New York, other sanctuary city-like jurisdictions will say that the federal government cannot commandeer them. They cannot force the states to enforce federal law. But I think it's important to keep in mind, again, while the federal government cannot compel states to enforce federal law, states and cities and local officials cannot take actions to frustrate the enforcement of federal law. They cannot take actions to subvert federal law enforcement. We're seeing the prosecution of a Wisconsin state court judge in Milwaukee, Wisconsin right now for taking actions to help illegal aliens evade capture by federal immigration authorities. Those types of actions designed to frustrate federal law enforcement, those are inappropriate, and I suspect you're going to see the Justice Department bringing more lawsuits, more criminal enforcement actions when that type of conduct takes place.
And so how do you see this playing out? Because right now there is a clash of, as you pointed out, local city, state, sanctuary jurisdictions are basically subverting the federal laws.
Right. Well, we'll have to wait and see what the district courts do with these cases. Obviously, many of these have been filed in very blue cities, very blue jurisdictions. So it wouldn't surprise me if these cases have to go up through the Court of Appeals, maybe eventually make their way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. But as a matter of law, as a matter of sound public policy, it should be clear we should want our federal government to enforce our immigration laws, to take common sense actions that protect all citizens. And unfortunately, unfortunately, too many of these left-leaning cities, these so-called sanctuary cities, have taken actions, have passed policies that, again, ultimately frustrate federal law enforcement and make their citizens less safe.
Looking at
They are putting America's security at risk. And it's time for the big corporations to step up for employee verification, which went through a change as a result of COVID, where there is this lax kind of overseeing of who employees are. It's time for businesses to verify their workers, monitor their conduct, create a zero trust structure, and they've got to do this before the security of our country is compromised. That means do a real interview. Get them on camera. Look and see if the person whose picture you have is the person that you're talking to.
A first-of-its-kind California law got shut down by a federal appeals court yesterday. A federal appeals court has ruled California can't require background checks for the purchase of ammunition. The court said the first-of-its-kind law is unconstitutional and that it violates the Second Amendment rights to bear arms. The ruling confirms a lower court's permanent injunction that blocked the state from enforcing the law. Circuit Judge Sandra Ikuta said the law was inconsistent with traditional firearm regulation approved by the Supreme Court. California Governor Gavin Newsom said the ruling was a slap in the face to efforts by California officials to enact firearm restrictions to curb gun violence. Former Representative George Santos is expected to report to federal prison today to begin serving his sentence of more than 7 years for fraud and identity theft. 37-year-old Santos was expelled from Congress after a brief and scandal-plagued tenure. Prosecutors had recommended an 87-month sentence, saying the top end of Santos' guideline sentence range was appropriate to reflect the seriousness of his unparalleled crimes. Santos pleaded guilty to 2 of the 23 criminal counts he faced for inflating fundraising numbers and faking donor names to qualify for financial support from the Republican Party during the 2022 election cycle. That's when the political newcomer was elected to represent a slice of New York City and its eastern suburbs. The U.S. and Mexico have reached a landmark agreement to tackle decades-old environmental crisis, and that is the flow of Mexican sewage into U.S. waters. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports.
The U.S. and Mexico have reached an agreement to stop the daily discharge of up to 50 million gallons of sewage-contaminated water from the Tijuana River into the Pacific Ocean near San Diego. For years, the beach in Imperial Beach, a San Diego suburb, has been closed due to contamination, with keep out of water signs becoming a fixture. The pollution has hurt both tourism and public health. On Wednesday, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin and Mexico's Environment Minister Alicia Bárcena signed a memorandum of understanding in Mexico City. Under the deal, Mexico will fast-track more than $90 million in upgrades to the Tijuana sewage system. In return, the U.S. will release funds to finish expanding a sewage treatment plant located on the U.S. side of the border. That plant treats wastewater piped in from Mexico. The expansion is expected to be completed by the end of August. Zeldin called the agreement a huge win for millions of Americans and Mexicans.
I smelled what a lot of residents in the community live through and have to deal with. I saw the degradation of the Tijuana River Valley. I heard about the beaches that were closed. I met with the Navy SEALs who have had their training impacted.
And while the New Deal targets water contamination, a recent study warns the danger may also be in the air, as toxic particles from the Tijuana River are now believed to travel miles inland, raising fresh health concerns. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coming up, Russia follows the Chinese Communist Party's lead and jails people for their belief. The country arrested a practitioner of Falun Dafa, and it's not the first time. Find out more after the break.
Run for the U.S. Senate. On another social media post, President Trump endorsed Ashley Moody, the Florida senator that was appointed by Governor DeSantis to replace Marco Rubio. President Trump praised Moody, saying Ashley is working tirelessly to grow our economy, cut taxes and regulations, promote Made in the USA, champion American energy dominance, and help secure our already secure southern border. On the House side, Republicans are hoping to win 5 seats in the state of Texas after Governor Abbott asked the state legislature to review districting in the Lone Star State.
So since the last time that we did redistricting, the law has changed. And under the law that changed in a lawsuit that was filed by Democrats, and the decision came out last year, it says that coalition districts are no longer required. And so we want to make sure that we have maps that don't impose coalition districts.
Coalition districts are districts drawn in a way that 2 or more minorities combined can form a majority. Democrats have vowed to redraw districts in blue states like California in retaliation.
Governor Gavin Newsom in California has talked about a redistricting in his state. I think it's time that we match fire with fire.
Democrats are also considering new strategies after losing the Senate, the White House, and failing to flip the House in the 2024 elections.
And so when you're always communicating, not just to cable news, but to local news, to podcasters, to influencers, always on means you're always honest. And we have the values on our side, and now we just have to be in more places, more spaces, and that's why we're going to win the midterms in just under 18 months.
Republicans currently have a 53-seat majority in the Senate, which they're likely to keep, and a 5-seat majority in the House. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
A first-of-its-kind